Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Women, Sex, God, Power, a podcast where I shout my opinions at you forcefully and subject you to ideas which you frankly will not hear anywhere else on the globe. For the last month, I have been away in hiding as the world increasingly goes mad, trying to grab hold of the very last shred of sanity that infuses my consciousness as I prepare for the inevitable apocalypse that is about to hit planet Earth. Not to be dramatic or anything, but we're more or less going in that direction. So, whilst we're still alive, I thought I would continue recording some episodes on topics that I hope will empower and enrich your existence as you embark on your spiritual journey. Women, Sex, God, Power is a podcast that is exploring the rise of divine feminine consciousness, the extraordinary evolution that we are currently moving through as a collective consciousness, as humanity, the downfall of modern day men, and the destigmatization of sex, and many other topics in relation to spiritual wisdom, esoteric wisdom. And today, my friends, we are going to be discussing the topic of dark feminine power. What is dark feminine power? Why is it such an essential aspect of a woman's expression that she needs to reclaim, particularly at this time in our human evolution, in which the collective humanity is going through so much upheaval, personal transformation, and purging? Why is it so necessary for women to really claim as part of their consciousness an energy and a life force that has been suppressed within the collective consciousness of women, which has been demonized, which has been pushed down and viewed as a destructive force, when it is in fact such an important part of a woman's power that she needs to reclaim for the sake of her own spiritual personal evolution, but also for the sake of men, for the sake of helping men rise into their true divinity and power and operate from their integrity and their spiritual power and the power of their heart and deeper awareness, deeper self-awareness, opposed to the destructive, controlling, egotistical nature that has been driving men for such a long time and creating this split and separation between women and men, which we're seeing increasingly on the planet at this time. So, I would like to begin at the very root of where this demonization of dark feminine power began to really come into being, which is with the tale of Adam and Eve. And if you're thinking, what the fuck? What does this have to do with anything? Or why do we have to go so far back in the timeline of our history? Because this biblical Abrahamic tale really seeded the idea that women are the root of all evil, and specifically women who have their own mind and have their own independence and autonomy, that they are a destructive force to humankind and to mankind, to men in particular. So if you're not familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, and I'm not a historian, a religious historian by any means, I'll give you a little brief breakdown. So most of us know that Adam and Eve existed in this Garden of Eden, this paradise away from the realities of the rest of the world. And the one thing that was expected of them was to not eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. So God supposedly goes to Adam, goes to Eve and says, you can have anything you want, you can do anything you want, you can create anything you want, just don't touch the tree of knowledge, do not eat the fruit from the forbidden tree of knowledge. Eve then decides to go against God's word and take one of the fruits from the tree, and thus the downfall of humankind supposedly develops, is birthed into being, because Eve decides to eat the apple. And to give you further context with this story, so that you understand the origins of immense hatred towards women and the feminine as well as a whole, we have Lilith, Adam's first wife, who eventually got bored of Adam and turned to him and said, Adam, I am tired of having sex with you. I am going off to procreate with the demons on Earth. And I think that's understandable, right? Because sometimes sex with men is boring. And, sometimes we want to explore different territories of our sexuality with demigods, with demons. I personally can relate. So we now have this mythical Abrahamic tale in which there are two figures tied to Adam, the law-abiding citizen of the Garden of Eden, and we have these two female characters who both disobey Adam and God, supposedly. One of them consuming the fruit that contains the knowledge, and the other, Lilith, deciding to exit the Garden of Eden and go down to Earth and seek her freedom. Seek her freedom of sexual expression, though, to be specific and to be precise. So at one end of the spectrum, we have a woman who's now gained access to the truths and realities of the world, and on the other side, we have a woman who has reclaimed her sexual autonomy. And thus, all womankind are damned for eternity, for their feminine and sexual power, because one white mythical man was upset for being rejected. Okay? This is the reason why I'm telling this tale, is because if we want to trace back the enormity of hatred towards women and the feminine and demonization of women who have sexual autonomy and creative freedom and step outside the laws and social constructs of society, we can trace it all the way back to the Garden of Eden and Eve and Lilith. Another thing that I want to emphasize about this tale is that the apple that Eve and Adam were told was not for consumption, the tree of knowledge, the fruit. What the apple represents is spiritual awakening, access to spiritual knowledge, not just worldly knowledge, but spiritual knowledge, truths about the universe that have been historically and systemically hidden from women, that women have been chastised and criticized for wanting to know of. So the apple represents spiritual awakening, and Eve, as a woman taking the apple, it represents her journey from innocence and naivety into spiritual knowing, into knowing about the laws of the universe, having access to an enormity of knowledge and therefore an enormity of power. It also represents gaining knowledge and access to the ways of men. So the apple not only represents having access to truths and knowledge and realities about the nature of humankind, but it also represents going from a state of naivety in relation to how a young girl might view men, to suddenly having a much deeper awareness of a reality of men, how violent men can be, how disruptive men can be to a woman's development, her power, her empowerment, her autonomy, how men can have certain agendas that work against a woman developing her consciousness, her intelligence, her shrewdness, her wisdom. So it's not just for Eve as being damned for consuming the forbidden fruit because it goes against God's word. Eve is being damned because she is consuming knowledge and moving from a state of naivety and innocence and unknowing into a state of spiritual awakening, where she not only has knowledge and power regarding the ways of the universe, but also knowledge and power in regards to the truth about men and mankind, which men have sought to keep a secret from women in order to continue controlling them and abusing them and having power over them. So the damnation of women and the feminine as a whole, this portrayal of women being the root of all evil, women being the reason that men are led astray and that men are led down a path that is corrupt and unholy, all comes back to this biblical, Abrahamic, mythical tale in which there is the portrayal of women being the downfall of Adam in the Garden of Eden for wanting to have access to knowledge and wisdom and power for her own benefit. The reason why I took a good 6 minutes of this episode to mention this tale is because we're looking at the religious roots of the portrayal of women and feminine power, but specifically dark feminine power, specifically the essence of a woman that is wild and untamable and uncontrollable, and that has her own way of doing things, that has her own mind, again, that seeks to question, that seeks to go against the structures of mankind that have been very oppressive and hostile to the development of this particular dark feminine power, which is also the power that allows a woman to become fully autonomous, fully conscious, spiritually awake. So when I speak of this little girl consciousness, this maiden consciousness, it's moving beyond the fairy tale that has been sold of men. It's moving beyond the fairy tale of this idealistic life in which a woman is going to find a partner and is going to get married and settle down and have children, and all of her dreams will be fulfilled, and she'll be perfectly satisfied and emotionally nourished and spiritually fulfilled by catering herself and her identity to a man, to the world of men. It is a pacifying, collective, hypnotic spell that women have been put under. That if you wait until the right man comes to save you and rescue you and take care of you, then all of your worries and all of your woes will go away. It's very much putting women under this mass hypnotic spell that they don't need to become fully conscious or fully spiritually awake, and that their happiness and fulfillment lies in the hands of finding their divine masculine partner. This is the lie that has been sold to women. And any woman that recognizes that her true power and autonomy lies in becoming fully conscious and fully spiritually awake. Spiritually awake meaning very connected to her own unique soul path, her own divine life path, what that looks like outside of these social cultural constructs of marriage and monogamous relationship and child rearing. Are those things that the vast majority or even 50% of women actually want, or is it again a mass hypnotic collective spell that has been infused into the consciousness of the feminine and therefore women and passed down from one generation of women to the next to keep them in this sedated state of being so that their dark feminine energy, that essence of formidable power, can fully come back online and manifest through each and every woman? Why is this so important? It's important because dark feminine power represents purification of the consciousness of every human being. Healthy destruction, right? So ego death, spiritual awakening, sexual awakening, a remembrance of ancient, formidable, divinely led, goddess-powered leadership. Rebellion against man-made systems that disrespect the feminine and the power of women. And when we're looking at the tale of Adam and Eve being severely punished for taking the apple, what Eve is ultimately being punished for is having, again, access to the power, not only to the power that is available outside of her, but also the power that is within her. She's ultimately being punished for reclaiming her right to live as an autonomous woman, as an empowered woman, and for having access and knowledge to the true intentions of men, and that those true intentions are, particularly at that time as well, to very much suppress the power of women and to keep this dark feminine energy, this energy of feminine leadership, in the depths and in the shadow of the human collective, so that we actually forget what it looks like to have a world full of women who are leaders, who are consciously leading, who are leading the women around them, but also leading the men around them, and massively contributing to the awakening of men, as well as women. If we're looking at the essence of this dark feminine energy, it's like a dream world where women go to imagine who they could be if they allowed their power to actualize fully. And it is also equally as much so a dream world where men go when they become bored of their wives and want to play out the female fantasy of objectifying and controlling the sexually empowered, autonomous, wild woman. So this dark feminine energy is something that both women and men actually really crave, because it's awakening them to the truth of their power. It's awakening them to the truth of their spiritual potential, that they are in fact pieces of God in human form, manifest in human form, and have the potential to co-create anything they desire with the universe. It's bringing them into remembrance with their true divinity. And we can talk about this divine feminine consciousness, which depicts women as being very soft and feminine and nurturing. And that's all very well. But if we don't claim that energy within us that is here to destroy and wipe away and remove anything that is not really in alignment with the truth of who we are, then anything that we build in life, anything we build, a relationship, a business, a creative venture, it's not built in integrity, and it's not built on a strong foundation. It is a foundation that can crumble the moment our self-esteem is shaken, the moment we experience some kind of loss in our reality. So the beauty of this dark feminine energy, this powerful energy that is here to bring women into the core of their truth and their ability to lead their own life and lead others, is that it is wiping away anything that is founded upon illusion. Healthy destruction, right? Healthy purification. When you take a psychedelic is a pure representation of dark feminine power. When you're working with a plant like Mother Ayahuasca, that is dark feminine power. When you're working with shrooms, dark feminine power, because it's ripping back the veil of illusion that we create from our ego, and it is showing us the truth of who we are at our core. So there cannot be any divinity in the collective of human consciousness. There cannot be this utopian planet that we all desire to experience, where everyone is getting along and there's no oppression and there's no hierarchy and there's no racism and there's no sexual objectification towards women. That cannot exist without dark feminine power, because we as a collective must go through this mass purging, this mass awakening, this discomfort of leaving behind the illusion of who we thought we were, so that we can become who we're meant to be, in order for that divinity and that oasis of peace and unity within the collective consciousness, within the whole of humanity, in order for it to fully birth and manifest. We have to go through that process of deep, deep purging, purification. So that's what dark feminine power is. It's awakening from this state of naivety and innocence and not knowing the reality of how violent we can be as a human species, not knowing the reality of the universe, not knowing the reality of God, not knowing the reality of sex, taking us out of that naivety and that innocence and into this spiritual awakening, into this purification and peeling back all the layers of illusion, so that we have to sit with what is real in the moment. That was a very esoteric way of explaining this. I'm going to try and simplify it a little bit. A woman who is embodied in her dark feminine power pulls out the divinity and the power in every woman and man around her. She is acting as a mirror and an illuminating light that shines light into the darkest, most shadowy parts of the human psyche, bringing much of the unintegrated, fragmented confusion, chaos, violence, disarray, the suffering and despair contained by every woman and man to the surface, forcing them to really witness their inner world and transmute their suffering into power. And this is why women in their dark feminine energy, and dark feminine energy is in essence has been so heavily demonized and ostracized, because it's not a passive energy. We have this idea that the feminine as an energy is passive, that it's pacifying, that it's nurturing, that it's going to lull men into this illusion, where they are fed this illusion of feminine beauty and feminine grace and feminine sexuality. That women are here to take men away from all of their ills and all of their disturbances and all of their inner turmoil and self-created misery and self-created boredom and self-hatred and self-disgust. They are here to pacify men, to add beauty to a man's life, to cover over a man's own corruptions and inner distortions with her beauty, with her softness, with her nurturing. And this is not what feminine power does. This is not what true feminine power does. This is not what a woman who is embodied in her dark feminine power is here to do. She's here to do the opposite, which is to wake a man up, to disturb him, to aggravate him in many ways, right? To point out to him where there is illusion, disillusionment, where there is nastiness and yuckiness and messiness in his consciousness that needs to be purified, that needs to be cleared up. That is what women are here to do, which is why women who are embodied in their dark feminine power are dismantlers. Not just dismantlers in their intimate partnerships with men, but dismantlers of the patriarchy, dismantlers of relationships and soul contracts and ancestral agreements and anything that limits and oppresses that power within a woman, that creative power, that creative genius, that transformative ability to take the darkest, most difficult, most painful experiences and situations and alchemize them and turn them into healing, into wisdom, into vitality. That is what women in their dark feminine essence can do. They are alchemists, so they can transform the deepest, darkest, murkiest, most difficult situations into the most life-giving, into the most innovating and creative offerings, which they can then offer up to humanity. And as I said, because this is a power that has been pushed down for eons and really sedated within the consciousness of women, women have really forgotten what it means to be in their divinity, to be in their truth. And when we don't have that awareness, when we don't have that level of awakening within ourselves, it's very, very, very hard to create a life that is really aligned with what our soul wants. It is a law of the universe that nothing new can come into being before something unwholesome has been destroyed and dismantled. So you can apply this to your personal life, you can apply this to the politics of the world, but if you are trying to create something new in your life, it cannot come into being until the old has been destroyed, until the old has been let go of, until the old has been dismantled. So that transformation, that birthing and that manifesting of a new future, a new life path, a new way of being, it cannot actualize through us. It cannot become a reality until the old has been destroyed. The old way of being, the old way of thinking, the old way of perceiving the world has been dismantled. This is another way that we can work with this dark feminine consciousness as women and as men. We can call upon it to really revolutionize our lives. And then we have to be prepared for the fact that it is going to dismantle and remove and obliterate anything from our path that is not truly in alignment for our highest good. Anything that is not serving us, anything that is repressing our power. And that transformation that we have to go through is painful and it's extremely disruptive. And it causes us to lose people. It causes us to have to let go of many, many relationships that we maybe thought, we had a divine spiritual partnership with someone and that partnership was going to continue for a very, very long time. Then we suddenly find that we're moving into an era in our consciousness, in our life, where it's actually harming us to stay in that relationship, is harming us to stay in that soul contract. So if you want to use dark feminine energy and power to radically alter and transform your life and your life path, then you can call upon it and work with it and use it to really, really change and shift and massively upgrade your current reality. But again, you have to be prepared for the fact that it's a disruptive energy. And that is why we fear it so much. We fear that energy when we see it in women in our lives. Women who are not afraid to do things differently. Women who are not afraid to disturb other people's realities and other people's perceptions of what a woman should be, from simply choosing to be more of herself. From simply choosing to be more rebellious, more innovative, to walk a different path, to do things in a way that's unconventional or typically not socially accepted for women. So that dark feminine power, by definition, is a disruptive energy, but it's positively disruptive because once we get through that period of disruption in our life, where we've moved from this state of naivety and innocence and unknowing in the way we perceive reality and perceive people around us as, As an example, a really good example of this is people who are still in that naivety and that state of innocence. They'll tend to say things like, oh, well, I just like to see the good in all people. That is a terrible mentality. It is a terrible mentality. When we've moved from a state of naivety into this spiritual awakening, we have the awareness that human beings are extremely complex, that everyone around us is existing in their own universe, and they are housing both polarities of shadow and light. They have the potential to do enormous good in the world, and they have the potential to create enormous chaos and destruction in the world. And we always have the choice to decide whether we're going to walk towards a path of enlightenment and creating more goodness and more creativity and more positive transformation in the world for ourselves and others around us, or whether we're going to become enslaved by our lower states of being, sexual addiction, addictions in general, poor habits, gossiping, treating ourselves poorly, treating others poorly. So we always have a choice. But we, as individual beings, in our relationship with others, have to recognize that every human holds that polarity and duality within them. So it's no good walking around saying, well, I like to see the good in people, and then getting upset when people screw you over. Because you have to have this awareness that humans contain both. And we will always be swinging between that spectrum of shadow and light, consciousness, unconsciousness throughout our whole life. And you always have to choose. And again, this is going from a state of naivety, not knowing, lack of consciousness, lack of being awake to the reality around you and the ways of people and the ways of humans, and particularly humans who are choosing to remain unconscious and not take radical responsibility for their life. This is about you becoming so conscious and awake within your own self that you see reality and the reality of people for who they are. That you no longer choose to paint over reality with a pretty picture. You no longer choose to paint over your relationships with a more palatable, digestible version of realities. Version of who you would like that person to be. You choose to see and recognize them for who they are. Both conscious and unconscious. Both shadow and both light. This is what it looks like when we are in our dark feminine power. We see things for how they are. We recognize that we live in a realm where there is creativity and there is chaos. And the more conscious we become, the more in control of our life we become. So even when we are experiencing personal disruption, or when we're experiencing universal disruption, as a part of our own spiritual awakening, as part of our own transformation, we still have the power to move through life consciously and in control of our circumstances to one extent or another. So our dark feminine power comes online often when we have been initiated into an intensive dark night of the soul, which begins to illuminate and reveal where we are holding patterns, coding, contracts, soul contracts, and agreements with family members, our culture, our partner, with money, with our traumas, with our ego, which is stifling our soul's desire to actualize itself fully, free from the constraints of socially agreed upon contracts, family contracts, programs that want to keep feminine power oppressed. Because when we have programs that keep feminine power oppressed, it keeps everyone in a state of mass sedation. And when everyone is in a state of mass sedation, neither women nor men can awaken. And when women are in a state of mass sedation, men cannot awaken. Men cannot awaken because women are the vehicle and the oracle and the catalyst through which a man also awakens. Women in their dark feminine power are the ones that wake men up, that shake them to their core and show them where they're being weak, where they're being misogynistic, where they're hiding from themselves. And it's not in a way that shames men, okay? I really want to emphasize this. Women who have really claimed the shadow part of their own consciousness and know how to work with that aspect of their shadow nature, that power that lies in the depths of their unconscious mind and being, and knows how to use that to transform everything within her, to bring her more power. She is the greatest catalyst for men, but in a way that empowers him. Not in a way that shames him, not in a way that wrongs him, or makes him feel bad, or ashamed of his masculinity, or ashamed of his desires, but actually holds up a mirror and shows him, here's where you're causing destruction within yourself, and therefore in other women. Here's where you are harming the feminine without realizing it. So dark feminine power, women in their dark feminine power, are bringing men out of a state of sedation and asleepness and unconsciousness, lack of awareness, lack of sensitivity, lack of seeing clearly. They're bringing them out of that state of denial and not wanting to see the truth, not wanting to see the whole of who they are, that they have both good and unconscious behaviors within them. They are inviting these men to awaken to the whole of who they are, because when you can see the whole of who you are as man and woman, that's when you are truly powerful. That's when you become a conscious creator of your reality. That's when you become a master of your own life. Even in the most of unconscious of men, I believe there is a deep, deep desire within the masculine to really have that level of awakening, to experience that level of purification and transformation from witnessing the women around him be fully rooted in their dark power and their wilderness of expression, their undomesticated, uncompromised wilderness of all-encompassing feminine expression. There is a real desire in men to witness that in women, but they're also afraid. Right? They're really, really terrified. So they crave it. They really want it. Men really want it. But they're also terrified because they know that it's going to force them to have to look at things within their own psyche that they don't want to look at. Because it's painful. Because it's going to bring up a lot of shame. It's going to bring up a lot of self-hatred. It's going to bring up a lot of self-disgust. And the invitation here for men who are on this journey to becoming more conscious is, can you embrace all of those feelings and make them okay? Can you make them okay? Can you witness the parts of you that you are afraid to really look at and be with them anyway? Can you welcome all of them? Because when the women around you are seeking for you to come into a clearer state of consciousness so you recognize how your masculinity can help women and wake up to all the ways in which you are harming women with your unconsciousness, when you respond to the women in your life, when they are willing you to come into a state of deeper clarity, you reclaim parts of your power, you awaken parts of your identity and your truth and your purpose as a man that you would not have been able to access if you were just in a relationship with a woman who was sedating your consciousness. So dark feminine energy that has been sedated in women is not just harming women, it's harming men. Because a man's awakening, and you can have your own opinion about this, but it is my not so humble opinion that most men's awakening is going to come through women choosing to embody that dark feminine warrior power that is saying to the men, wake up, wake the fuck up. Look at our planet. Look at our politicians. Stop focusing on things like women on OnlyFans who are misusing their sexuality and demonizing those women, or arguing with women, or demonizing a feminine. Look at the politicians that are killing children, quite literally killing Palestinian children. Look at those politicians. Look at the men in the world that are so corrupt. Recognize them as the perfect walking male manifestation of what it looks like when men have not tended to their shadow and their unconscious power-hungry desires and their selfishness and their greed and their trauma. Look at those men and demonize those men, or rather learn from them, rather than directing all of your anger and rage and energy towards women in your life, because women are mad at you because you're not waking up, because you're not choosing to become more conscious. So this is about a redirection of energy. You need to recognize the shadow within your own self as a man. And for women, they need to recognize where they have sedated that power within them and reclaim it. And reclaim it in spite of whatever reactions or responses they're going to get from the people around them, because you will, my love, okay? You will. It's inevitable that people are going to start acting up because you're choosing to step into this non-negotiable, no-nonsense, this is who I am, this is all of me, I'm putting it on display for the world to see, because we need to remember what it looked like when the planet had a level of feminine consciousness that was uncompromising and willful and determined and ruthless, but in a healthy way, in a way that brought people into their divinity and into closer union with the universe, with the energy of spirit, which is pure, all-encompassing, all-loving energy. We are at a crucial tipping point in humanity, in our evolution, in which both the divine and dark feminine are beginning to actualize through every single woman that is ready to burn down the ways of the old world and fully align with the deeper source of feminine power that values all life, feminine power where no one is more important, no life is more important than another. White lives are not more important than Palestinian, Middle Eastern, Arab, Muslim lives or black lives, right? Again, this is a part of dark feminine consciousness. Everyone is welcome here. But if there is any form of hostility or destructiveness or unlawfulness that she witnesses playing out in her realm, then she's going to turn into a angry, demonic demigod in order to restore that realm to order. So again, we're looking at healthy destruction. We're looking at the burning of the old world and the old ways of being that are founded on oppression, that white colonial mentality that is founded upon the backs of other people's oppression and suffering. We're looking at burning that world to the ground so that one in which all people and all beings get to live in harmony can exist in its place. And this is why, again, this dark feminine energy, we're looking at the purification of our inner landscape so that we can create from a place of soul-aligned, authentic desire. This is the other thing also for women in their dark feminine power. Women who are really awake in themselves, who are conscious, they cannot be deceived or manipulated or led astray or pulled into destructive relationships or soul agreements or soul ties created by unconscious people or men with hidden agendas. Again, this is about being fully awake, not just walking through the physical world, choosing to see what you want to see, seeing things for how they are, even if it's painful, even if the truth is painful. So dark feminine energy can see through deception and lies and predict how an event is going to unfold ahead of time. Therefore, she is impossible to deceive. So we're tapping into the energy of the mystic, the oracle, the channeler, the priestess, the woman that is connected to higher realms of intuition and spiritual power, that can know things intuitively through her psychic senses, who is very switched on and very connected to her intuitive wisdom and is not gaslighting herself. She knows something is off because she can feel it in her body. She knows that a man is not who he says he is because she can feel it in her body. She's connected to that power, that intuitive power, the realms of the unseen, the dream world, right? So a really cool thing that you can develop once you start to really tap into this dark feminine energy is you can enter into your dreams and start knowing things about people, knowing things about your future, healing traumas, transforming parts of yourself that are in fear or in terror. Don't underestimate how powerful this energy is, because you can literally work with it in your dreams. How fucking cool is that? While you're asleep, you can start seeding certain beliefs in your consciousness that are infusing the whole of you with empowering statements that can shift your relationship with money, with men, with women, with your dreams, with your aspirations, with your manifestations. So there's so much that you can do with this energy once you really invite it into your reality that can put you potentially 5 years ahead of where you otherwise would be if you chose to stay in the state of sedation and non-seeing because the truth is too hard for you to digest. I mean, what's worse, digesting a painful truth or having to wake up 10 years from now and then be presented with that truth after wasting 10 years of your life? You tell me. So we're looking at speeding up and accelerating your level of awakening and therefore the level of abundance and joy and aliveness that you have access to, because you're choosing to see reality for what it is and you're choosing to really claim the parts of yourself that have that wisdom and have that knowledge to navigate life with spiritual intelligence, with deeper awareness. So one of the questions that I get asked quite often with divine feminine power and dark feminine power is, what is the difference? Divine feminine power represents the seeds that you plant upon fertile, healthy soil that will eventually birth your life into existence. But dark feminine power is the energy that demolishes and removes everything that is obstructing your path to greater harmony and abundance and aligned relationship, so that it can create and transform your foundations, so that once you do begin to plant, you can plant on a foundation that is stable and strong and in alignment with the authenticity of your soul self. You can plant with intention and embodied intuition and clarity, which then allows you to consistently move towards the things that you desire in life without constant disruptions, which can often come in the form of a universe trying to pull you in a different direction because it can see that the path that you're on is not truly aligned with your highest destiny. So when we are working with dark feminine energy, we are planting a foundation for our life that is going to allow us to build something that is really, really strong and resilient. Right? It's the difference between someone who is going after making money or going after success from a place of very, very shaky self-esteem because they need the validation, versus someone who is going after money and success because they want to be able to accumulate abundance so that they can empower others, so that they can serve humanity, so that they can add to the song of collective consciousness. They can add their own music, their own symphony, their own contribution of empowerment to the collective consciousness. We're coming from two very different energies there. This energy of I need validation, I need to make money, I need to have fame, I need to be recognized because I don't feel like I'm enough in myself. So I'm going to constantly need that validation from other people to confirm that I am enough. This energy is very shaky and it's not sustainable to act from that place. But this energy of I know who I am, I know that my message matters, I know that I'm here to do important work on behalf of the collective and the awakening of humanity so that it can move towards its divinity and greater love and harmony and co-creation and unity. You see the difference in where we're coming from. So this again is the importance of being rooted in our dark feminine energy as women, so that we can move and operate and create from a place of divine intention in alignment with what the universe wants for us. So whilst divine feminine energy is concerned with peacemaking, healing, nurturing, connecting to higher dimensions to bring through clearly channeled divine guidance, the dark feminine is driven to disrupt, rebel, destroy, abolish any structures that are exploitive, any inhibiting ideals that prohibit, limit, or shame the full spectrum of a woman's feminine power from actualizing. So divine feminine energy is often confused with being submissive, meek, and placing men and the masculine above one's own internal needs. And whilst divine feminine energy is neither submissive, it acts as a polar opposite force to dark feminine energy. So it's like the quiet ocean that emerges after a raging sea has demolished much of what was obstructing our inner landscape from expressing the most divine qualities of our nature. For this reason, a woman actually cannot fully embody her divine peacemaking energy until she has fully embodied her dark feminine power. Healthy, balanced women are going to go through this process of oscillating between divine feminine power and dark feminine energy in an ongoing desire to actualize the clarity and purity of their soul. And over time, they will become less pulled by the desires of the ego or the wants of people around them or the pulls of the social constructs and expectations for women in the world, and eventually become so resolute and centered and certain and confident in their own decision-making process that none of those outside influences disturb or infiltrate their consciousness and influence them into moving in a certain direction anymore. For a lot of women, this can look like the influence of, or the pressure, the social pressure of needing to get married at a certain age, needing to have children, or maybe they don't want either of those things. So the more we come into this energy of, this is what's right for me, and this is how I will create my life, and no one and nothing outside of me is going to influence me otherwise. The more that we move from that state of naivety and people-pleasingness and trying to pacify everyone around us and not trigger or intimidate too many people with our power, the more we get over that and we start to go, fuck it. I'm gonna trigger, I'm gonna intimidate people. I'm gonna end up acting as a mirror that illuminates other people's insecurities and inadequacies back at them in choosing to claim more of my feminine power. And I'm going to get okay with that. I'm going to get comfortable with that because I know that it's not really about me. I know it's about them and their relationship with their own self, and the fact that their relationship with their own self is very shaky because they're not really living as their true self. So that's the other thing about when we're embodying this dark feminine power, we are going to naturally illuminate a lot of people's feelings of self-inadequacy and insecurity, simply from us choosing to walk a path that is in alignment with our true, deep soul desires, rather than being pulled by the social narratives and the collective consciousness and the neurotypical way of thinking, which is still boxing women into, this is, as a woman, what you should want for your life. You should want children and you should want a partner and that should be enough for you. Having the courage to say, well, you know what? It fucking isn't enough. Because I have my own mind and I have my own creativity and my own soul desires and I want to actualize them and I want to enjoy seeing what that looks like when it's manifested in physical form in the world. And I want to know what it feels like to be a 6-figure or 7-figure business owner. And I want to know what it feels like to have the ability to influence or teach people or start a business or create something that hasn't been created before. Because as a woman, that is your divine birthright. So it's being able to have the courage and the confidence to claim those things for yourself, regardless as to how other people are responding, and remembering that it's not about you, it's about their relationship with self. I want to finish by saying that our relationship with our dark feminine power is also about being comfortable with taking up space in the world, being comfortable with being powerful, being comfortable with being a sexually, creatively actualized being, as a woman, as a feminine being, right? The reason women really struggle to claim that dark feminine energy is because they fear their power. They fear their ability to influence. They also fear, again, how other people are going to respond and react to them as a result of them choosing to step into that archetype of, I am here. This is who I am. Don't like it? Fuck off. A lot of the time it is also fear of response to how people are going to react, but it's also fear of being powerful because it feels unfamiliar, right? It feels so unfamiliar to so many women after all the generational ancestral burdens and curses, especially for women of color, that have made women believe that the only way for them to survive in the world is to be meek and small and take up less space and make themselves as invisible and quiet as possible, because that's going to ensure your safety. So it's looking at your relationship with power. How comfortable are you with being seen? How comfortable are you with voicing and advocating your needs in relationship? How comfortable are you with walking away from situations that are not serving your well-being? That's all about being embodied in your dark feminine power, because it's your relationship with power. And your relationship with power includes relationship with other people, what you're willing to tolerate, what you're not willing to tolerate, your relationship with money, your relationship with sex, your relationship with your own body, your relationship with creativity, your relationship with self-expression, your relationship with transformation, and knowing that you have the resilience and the strength to move through difficult things. So we're looking at your relationship with power. That's really important. And it's really important to recognize where you are still in these soul contracts and soul ties and agreements, silently agreed upon social contracts, soul contracts that are pulling on your energy and holding you back and preventing you from really asking for what you want or knowing that you deserve the things that you want, right? Deservingness, worthiness. I deserve it. I'm worthy of it. Why? Because it's my birthright as a woman. I don't need to justify that to anyone. It is my birthright as a woman. So it's about your relationship with power and autonomy and advocating for your needs, speaking up for yourself. And every time you do that, you rewrite your soul contract. You rewrite the contracts you have with other people around you. You change your destiny. You quite literally change your destiny. Every single time you choose to reclaim your power by speaking up for yourself, by advocating for your needs, by not allowing other people's projections or infiltrations or reactions to your expression to make you go back into your box and go back to being small and limited. So that's something I want to leave you with as we end this episode, because that's really, really important. And the same applies for men. What does it look like to have a healthy relationship with power where you get to call the shots and the collective narrative is not influencing you in any shape or form? I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, that you got something from it. As usual, I know that the topics I bring to these episodes are very intense, but I feel that they're so important for the evolution of so many people on this planet right now, women and men. I'm also sorry if my voice has been a little bit hoarse. I've just recovered from a 3-week fucking flu. But I hope that you got something from this. Please do let me know with your comments, with your feedback. You can respond to the Q&A. You can also vote on the poll on the topics that you would like to hear me speak more on. And I hope I see you next time. Lots of love. Bye.